VGK returns from the holiday break to skate in Los Angeles against the Kings tonight. A.F.C. Bournemouth's new owner, Bill Foley, who ironically also owns the VGK, is featured in an NHL.com story in which there are a lot of parts that are telling, and a look back at the weekend's shootout win over the Blues.
You're Locked On Golden Knights, your daily podcast on the Vegas Golden Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hi again, everyone. Tony Cardasco and Chris Golick from Las Vegas. You could find us at Locked On VGK, at Tony Dasco, at TD Chris G on Twitter. And of course, we are on YouTube at Locked On Golden Knights. Please subscribe there. Ring that stinking bell. Okay, so first of all, Chris, I hope that you and your family had a great holiday weekend.
We survived.
And you got all the toys and goodies that you wanted, I'm sure.
We survived.
Okay, and yesterday we ate too many cookies, right? I think that's what you were telling everyone.
We barely survived.
Your review. So VGK yesterday, they reportedly sent Jonas Ronbjorg, Braden Pahal, and Pavel Dorofeyev back to Henderson. And so, does this clear the way for Jack Eichel and or Jonathan Marchesault's return tonight in Los Angeles?
I would start by Jonathan Marchesault. I feel like his injury, whatever it may have been, it was more of a preventative type of thing. Give him the weekend off. You got the Christmas break and everything. So I feel like Marchesault was a true day-to-day scenario. Jack Eichel, I was hoping we could have seen as early as this past Monday against Buffalo. Obviously, I'm sure Jack Eichel would have preferred that as well. It seems like he was, so let's go off the major injuries that we have right now. Not even majors, all the injuries. Marchesault day-to-day goes down the tunnel briefly, comes back, finishes a game. Going back, Paul Cotter in that Blackhawks game just got friggin' leveled. And it seemed like, again, none of us are privy to exactly what's happening, but we assume concussion, right? We assume, a few games a week, whatever the number may be. Hopefully he'll be back as quick as possible, health pending. All of a sudden he sneaks onto the IR quietly. So there might be something more going on, whether it's a worse concussion, whether it's a neck, who knows, but it's unfortunate. So we really don't know about Paul Cotter. Shea Theodore, I believe, was a week-to-week designation from Coach Cassidy after the knee-on-knee hit, I believe, against the Flyers, which was not a dirty play, just an unfortunate occurrence there. And then Zach Whitecloud, month to month, we're not going to see him for a long time. I think I got everybody, not including Brett Howden. Who knows what's going on there as well, unfortunately. So I would say Marchesault and Eichel are the nearest to coming back. I would say we get at least one of them, if not both of them, being that we sent 3 players back down to Henderson. So, reinforcements are coming. We'll take Marchesault, but Marchesault, let's do it the other way around. We'll take Eichel with a dash of Marchesault, because a lot of announcers and people call him. See, I'm pretty good, Tony. You gave me an extra 10 minutes to think of these things through. So Eichel with a dash of Marchesault today in LA.
You're on fire. And I would expect a lot of fans from Las Vegas to make that sojourn to Southern California to watch this game. However, all the Southwest Airlines flights are canceled. The Kings have played one more game than the Golden Knights, and they are 5 points behind the VGK. So this is, as a matter of fact, a pretty big game in the Pacific Division tonight.
It's a 4-point game.
Yeah, it really is. It's going to be one of those games where we're going to see if VGK can respond after a long weekend. I think more so than the Kings. Do they come out flat? Because we know that they respond off of the road trips, and then they have a nice fat weekend here in Vegas. How will they react in this game tonight? And the Kings come in as a very hot team. They have points in their last 5 games, in fact. They only left 1 point on the table in a shootout loss to the Coyotes last week. So that's
back-to-back, Tony. It was off a back-to-back, too. It's rigged.
Yeah, of course. So rigged. Yeah, this is a tough VGK road trip. They go to L.A., and then they go to Anaheim. So
On a
this
plane.
is
On a plane.
well, yeah, not Southwest though, because they're not flying into LA for the remainder of the year. So all those flights have been canceled. Trevor Moore this week signed a 5-year deal, and so that's a pretty big thing for them, an extension. And he comes into the game. Remember the ending of that first meeting of the year, which was kind of bizarre. So VGK wins the game, and they do it in regulation on just the dumbest play ever.
Sean Dursey.
Sean Dursey was behind the net. Could never forget this, right? But it gave VGK actually a good start and some momentum after that victory. He tried to milk the clock, right? Tried to run out the clock in
And VGK was
regulation.
okay milking the clock. Mark Stone made the comment. He was like,
Remember
okay,
that?
cool. You stay there. I'll stay here. We'll get a point. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's right. We're just going to get our point. We're cool with that. And so Dursey then decides to make a bonehead stretch pass, intercepted by, let me see if I can still remember this, intercepted by Pietrangelo. Pietrangelo to Stevenson to Stone, who pots the game winner, right? And it was 24.9 seconds remaining.
Whatever the time was, it wasn't enough, but it got the job done, and that's what matters. And you look at just looking through the King stats, it would be a King season if someone who was a relative unknown wasn't going to take Jonathan Quick's job as of late. Unfortunately, Jonathan Quick, an amazing season. I'm not necessarily knocking him. It's just his reality as of late. So Phoenix Copley, household name, 6-1 with a 2.49 goals against. So, now I understand obviously why Cal Peterson was sent through waivers, cleared waivers, and I believe playing down in Ontario right now. The Kings, I mean, looking up and down this roster, this all of a sudden, this is the Kings team that we were concerned about, right?
Stacked.
Early on in the season, the Kings had a very slow start, and we're like, okay, maybe this isn't going to be that big of a deal. And the Kings are having the season I thought the VGK would have. A kind of an start just there, right? Winning, losing, around 500, and then boom, they turn on all of a sudden. And they got blown out 6-0 against Buffalo last week. And then they go to Boston and win on the road. So that just shows you the resiliency and how this team can handle it. McClellan, obviously a very experienced coach, been through a lot of adversity in his time, of course, with the Sharks, obviously. Who can forget all that nonsense? Arvidsson sit on 24 points. Phil Deneau, 24. Drew Doughty is doing what he does. He's got 20 points. He's probably a minus 14, though, if I had to guess. Kevin Fiala, 35 points, their big acquisition at 3.25 million. That feels like a steal at that number. And then let's see, Kopitar, 29 points. That guy, he's immortal. Anze Kopitar is absolutely immortal. He's gonna play longer than Jaromir Jagr, I think. I mean, he's just phenomenal. He always leading the team. Got to be one of the best captains, period, in the NHL right now, as far as his leadership, just his work ethic, and you never hear anything negative about him. No controversy. Dude just shows up to work and crushes it, and one of my favorite players in the NHL by far.
Yeah, they roll 4 lines deep, so that's going to be again difficult for the VGK. The top line, as you mentioned, with Fiala, Kopitar, Kempe is just on fire. I feel like Fiala always scores against the VGK. He's one of those guys. You got to know and more those guys on the second line. The first game I remember, Gabe Velarde, right? Who I think he scored a goal, but he played well against the VGK. If he didn't, then I just feel that he scored something in the preseason, did some damage to the VGK. But they are really, he's on the third line. And to me, they again roll 4 deep. We're not sure who will be in net tonight, as you mentioned, but my guess is probably it will be Copley because he's got the hot hand. And
I was thinking the VGK side.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, Copley, I think, ironically, he is from the North Pole, Alaska. So just got to throw that out there. 'Tis the season, right? 'Tis the season still. And Cal Peterson, as you mentioned, sent to the AHL. Jonathan Quick, just, sloppy. Really, he was getting buried. Every time I was watching one of their games, he was just getting beaten like a drum. And then,
but in the playoffs, he'll kill it, Tony. In the playoffs, Jonathan Quick will absolutely crush it.
Oh, that's good though, right? So they're built, for the end of the season. And then McClellan said that the team now, the biggest difference from when we saw them in the first meeting in those preseason games with the 15-round shootout, fake shootout, and all that, rig shootout, McClellan said that they're playing better in front of the goaltenders now. So that's been the major difference with his team, because when you think of the Kings, you don't think of them defensively.
No, that's something I really have never thought about with the Kings. Another nugget, the Kings are always really good in overtime, too. If the games do go to overtime, like I remember back when I had more time at night, not running a business from home, if I'm watching, just highlights of games, just channel surfing on the couch, whatever, and the Kings are usually playing late, being in the West Coast. If you see a Kings game going to overtime, if you can get on one of your betting apps and get an in-game bet on the overtime result, hammer the Kings, because they've been a fantastic overtime team as of really the last 3 or 4 seasons. LA is a weird place to play, and the road trip is certainly a fun trip. I've done this trip before, not as a VGK supporter, but before VGK was a thing. We did this once or twice with the Blackhawks. It's usually LA and then Anaheim. I compare the Staples Center to T-Mobile, but T-Mobile is a little more open. Like Staples Center, when you're walking around, well, crypto.com, whatever the heck it is now, it doesn't feel like an arena when you're in the back of house. Like it's a weird feeling, especially in like that club level area. And it's weird. It's snooty. It's LA. I mean, it's what it needs to be. It was built for obviously the Lakers, and the Clippers are an afterthought, of course, and the Kings are a way beyond an afterthought when you go down the pecking order there. Anaheim, I don't know. That's a weird.
The pond,
the Honda,
very small. I think it's more intimate, obviously, than
but it feels
what you
big,
find
Tony.
in LA.
Yeah, it feels like a big arena, which is weird. It reminded me a lot of the United Center, just a little bit smaller, but just not a lot of character there. And I don't know. It would have been a fun trip to make, but just too busy, too much going on right now.
Yeah, and of course, the LA fans tonight will show up by period 2, perhaps. That's probably.
I think you're gonna get a lot of VGK. I think if they show the national anthem, or if someone puts it, through Facebook or social media, you're gonna hear a lot of Knights fans shouting during that anthem tonight.
Coming up next, we've got an NHL.com article that was released over the weekend, caught our attention. It's titled "What A.F.C. Bournemouth Owner and the Fans, what the owner Bill Foley can provide and what the fans can expect going forward with the Bill Foley owned team across the pond." We'll talk about that when we return right here on Locked On Golden Knights. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting information for all the stats, news, and analysis. Get all the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league that's out there, from football to basketball, from the NHL to esports. We've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those as well at BetOnline. We are always the fastest, the easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn a lot more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Welcome back to Locked On Golden Knights. Tony Cardasco, Chris Golick from Las Vegas. We thank you all for making us your first listen each and every day. Locked On Sports is another good addition to our family. You could find that wherever you find your podcast. Please make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. So, they have an article that was released by NHL.com this past weekend, and it is supposed to answer questions perhaps that the fans are asking over there in the UK about the new ownership of Bill Foley. And of course, I think this is to counter, to be quite honest with you, seriously, a lot of what I said. I put out a lot of the propaganda over there. I doused the propaganda, let's say, meaning doused it, because you knew something was going to come out on what this merry old owner would be providing for the fans there. Now, it is a PR puff piece. Make no mistake. It's on NHL.com. It goes behind the Wizards curtain, so to speak. And so let's just take a look at some of the things that were pointed out there, and we could go point by point if you'd like to, what have you. It talks about, sharing values that, the way that he built this team, the military man, the Army's U.S. Military Academy Knights, and how he brought that strong value and values to the VGK. It emphasizes player development. Okay, have they done a great job with player development here?
Go a step deeper into that point. It talks about City National and Lifeguard Arena. And I think if you look at the entire point together about investing in the ability to train these players. I think that's the point that I will agree with.
That's fair. No,
As
no, he
far as
definitely invest. Yes, that's the one point. That when they asked me about it, I did say, yeah, he invests in the team, in his teams,
you got
and
over
he
$50
does
million
care about it.
in structures between lifeguard and City National. Lifeguard might even be a few bucks more, but
And the Dollar
yeah,
Loan
Dollar Loan Center is
Center, and
beautiful too. I mean,
lifeguard, right? I mean,
back
yeah,
of
all
house is
that.
weird there, but otherwise it's a beautiful place. So back to developing the talent. I mean, I think this season, Tony, we're actually seeing it to a degree, right? We just mentioned Ron Bjerg, Lecision, Braden Pahal all going back down. You look at other players that have, come through the system from the beginning. Keegan Colasar, I mean, we make our points about him, but he is a homegrown talent and he is an everyday skater. Even when the team is healthy, he's probably an everyday skater. He was an everyday skater when the team was healthy, so I don't think that's going to change at all. Zach Whitecloud, unfortunately, his injury situation, Nick Hague. So, yes, in the beginning, there was we were churning out some players. And then all the trades, obviously, after that. And there was basically a nice little lull, if you will, for a couple of seasons. And then now, this season and the previous season, you are seeing some of these players contributing. Paul Cotter at a higher level, obviously. So are we as far along as some other teams? Probably not. But we're starting to see it because we haven't traded all these other players away yet.
Okay, so there is a big point in there that I had some issues with that was kind of forced into there and borders on the word and the term propaganda. I'm just going to be honest about it, okay? That he is engaged and treats the players well within this organization, spends most of the season here and enjoys lunch with players in their lounge. He listens to any concerns that they have and takes immediate steps to address them. Players often can come to him and they comment on how much they enjoy this time. And so now I know that the ticket to Dallas for Pete DeBoer came from meeting with those players each and every day. And I think that offender number one, William Karlsson, who just was not happy with that system, said so on the day they cleaned out their lockers. And there's other players. I think, again, I really feel like Foley gives preferential treatment to Karlsson, to Marchesault, not to Smith so much. But players like that, I think, are definitely in his ear each and every day. And then, okay, does he really treat the players well? Take the case of Marc-Andre Fleury, like finds out on Twitter, allegedly. Who knows how that shook out? Again, Nate Schmidt, I think. Nate Schmidt really didn't know much about being moved when he was moved. And then um, was Max Pacioretty really treated well during his stay in Vegas and talking about the lack of accountability? I don't understand. Yes, I know that they're trying to frame this for the fans there and to give them confidence in the new owner. Some great things that Bill Foley does. Again, facilities, second to none. Because the fans there were asking me, and the BBC and everyone, podcast, what have you, they asked me about the facilities. And hey, is he really going to build this training center? Absolutely. If he says he's building a new stadium, will that happen? Absolutely. Those things will happen. But as far as the infrastructure of the team, I'm not quite sure if what they're saying there really is true about treating all the players well, but meeting with them every day. Okay, I have a friend that runs a amateur sports club, and he has absolutely no contact with the parents of the kids. None.
Yep.
None. And he keeps them out of the equation, which I kind of go back and forth. The parents have no input into how he runs his programs. And so to me, by Foley doing this, I think he goes around the head coach, and the guys are going to whine when things aren't going well. Could you imagine they're having a BLT at lunch and Marchesault's going, yeah, I'm not liking this Cassidy guy. I can't imagine that the comments that the players are feeding Foley benefit this team.
Just going through a few things in my head. We talked a little about this last night. So it's a strange, different world now, and not just in the sports world, but in corporations and small businesses and big businesses, where there is this line now that these employees have to they just skip steps all the time, right? If you have an issue with what your supervisor is doing, instead of talking to your supervisor, you talk to the manager or the director, or whoever the highest power is, without allowing the chain of command an opportunity to fix it. So just going back to my personal history here, of course, I've at time I've had 300 or 400 staff members directly underneath me. Underneath isn't the right word. I've had 300 or 400 people directly in my report to realm when I'm running a big poker tournament. And when something, or let's just focus on the department side, the 50 or so people on each side, when something comes from above me and says, hey, someone talked to me about this. Okay, fine, cool. I'm glad they brought this up, but how come they don't talk to, give people an opportunity? Because that's how you get the best results. I feel if I got a problem with what you're doing on the show, I'm not going to go to Sean right away. I'm going to be like, hey, Tony, listen, let's talk about this. And I don't think we even had an issue to work out, but if we ever did have a problem, I'd talk to you and we'd laugh about it and we move forward. That's how you do it. I wouldn't go to Sean. I wouldn't go to, I forgot who sends out those updates from Lockdown. Forgive me, but I wouldn't go to the biggest person. I'd go to you, Tony, and I'd talk to you and be like, hey, here's my problem. Let's work it out. And let's move forward. When it comes from above, that's interesting. So yeah, when Marchesault and William Karlsson are having their BLT or whatever it is that they eat, I'm using your terminology, it's good to have that relationship. Like, it's good that the owner is visible. But how visible is too visible, I think, is the first question that I would ask. And then, sure, the players are putting things into his head. And then all of a sudden now the owner is he's going to McPhee, he's going to McCrimmon, or right to Cassidy. Hey, here's what I'm hearing. You might want to work on this. And, Cassidy throws his arms up, and now he's worried everything that he's doing in practice, in the games, behind the bench, behind closed doors, whatever that may be, is going to be, more or less used against him instead of the players going to him. And this is just our perspective. We're just throwing darts right now at some of the things that we're saying, but we're not throwing darts to a degree as well. You mentioned Nate Schmitz. That was a very unfortunate trade that Foley it was a situation that Foley was forced into by McCrimmon and or McPhee. Obviously, once Pietrangelo was signed by the VGK, they had a very short window to trade him. That was a fleece by, at the time, the Vancouver Canucks for like a 3rd round pick or something like that. And that trade bothered Foley. He talked about that. The Marc-Andre Fleury situation bothered him. I think more of this is not Bill Foley pulling the strings and saying, okay, we got to get Fleury out of here. In comes Robin Lehner. I don't think that's how a lot of this stuff works. I think this is McCrimmon and McPhee getting in his head. And I think McCrimmon and McPhee also require permission for some of these other moves that they do make, which is why they have to have multiple conversations with Foley to get him on board. So, how much of this, and the article mentions about putting experts in place to run the business. Foley does mention, I think the quote was something along the lines of, he captains the ship or something like that. I'm sure you might have this queued up for us, but
no, yeah, he does. He's the captain of the ship.
He's the captain of the ship.
That's what he was discussing with one of my friends there, one of my pals, a bloke over there in England that was interviewing him. And, because I did the interviews before, and like, how do you run this team? I'm the dictator. A limited partner is very, very limited. I'm the captain of the ship. So he said.
Yeah, no, Foley is listen, I mean, some people do have an ego. Foley does have an ego. I don't care what anyone says. He seems like a great guy behind the scenes. It would be great to share a conversation with. I'm sure it'd be a memorable moment if you got to spend a few words with him, or 5-10 minutes with him, whether it's over a drink or a meal or a BLT or whatever it may be, or an electric lemonade at T-Mobile Arena that costs $26, whatever that may be. But a lot of these, I mean, he's a billionaire many times, seems like many times over, at least I would assume. I don't know. He's got a lot of money, and with that does come an ego, does come a bit of a power trip, and it is his house. It is his rules at the end of the day. Sure, he's going to put experts in place, just like he did over here with his football club. There's going to be all sorts of people in place that are going to make key decisions. But how much reign do they truly have? We talked about this in the offseason, where Foley said he wants to be more visual. He wants to be more involved in things. So I really wonder, going back to my corporate world that's just damaged my brain, it seems like, the more I bring this up, is it literally like they have to send an email to Bill Foley and he has to approve, check it or something like that? Like, what's
everything, every single thing?
Maybe it's what it feels like. I mean,
every ounce of
we got to trade Zach Hayes, approve. Like, I mean, is it down to that?
Also, artwork and everything, every single ounce of what goes out there, I think he's involved with. It's not bad.
And that I'm okay with. I'm okay with that part of it.
It's not bad to have an owner who's hands on. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that if these players are enjoying their Braden, Lashiz, and Thompson BLT, if they're there enjoying a sandwich with Bill Foley and they start to give comments and some of them might not get playing time, I can't imagine the comments after that one game. Remember, Chris, the game where Marchesault was sat down, for a while, and then the next day, let's go have lunch. And yeah, I don't like this coach. I mean, I understand. Obviously, it's great to have communication with the owner of the team, but he's got his pets there, I'm sure. And if things aren't going well,
as is any business.
Last year was not a great season for William Karlsson. So what does he do? Blames a lack of creativity. Basically is pointing everything that he said, pointing towards the coach. And now, does he have that freedom? It doesn't appear as though he's taking advantage of it. If he does,
early on, Karlsson seemed to have an okay start, and his PK is fine, but he's not definitely doing what I had predicted him to do.
Yeah, for sure. But
not
again, I don't know if it's meddling. The ownership is meddling there, or again, getting some good comments from the team. If he wants some feedback on the structure of the 1-3-1, or then that's the coach. It shouldn't come down to the players. Going to him. It's good to give comments, but I don't know where those comments lead. I don't know if it's productive, to be quite honest. And I definitely now, again, by those comments that I read in the story, there is without a shadow of a doubt that the players ran Pete DeBoer out of town. That's basically how it went down.
I think it's a combination of the players and the situation. I mean, we watched the games, Tony, and how many times is it VGK gets 47 shots on goal, and it felt like 44 of them had no shot of going in. Pete DeBoer, yeah, I mean, and things are going well in Dallas. Pete DeBoer has a very strong history of making deep runs when he takes over a team, and then it kind of dries out a little bit after that. So we'll see how Pete DeBoer does in season 2, if he makes it through season 3, because that's not just a Dallas or a Pete DeBoer thing. That's an NHL thing, 2.5, 3 seasons. Like, you're in and out, and maybe Cassidy will be around longer. I hope so, because if he is, I mean, that means he's weathered a lot of a lot of poop emojis coming his way, I guess, because being a VGK coach comes with a lot of pressure. It's a very hot seat from the word go, and so far Cassie's done a great job of maneuvering that, and we'll see if it lasts, and we'll see how his relationship, to your point, Tony, his relationship with the players go, and then how the players paint their relationship with Cassidy over these lunches with Foley and whoever else is there. And it's a culture. I do see McCrimmon back of house talking to a lot of back of house employees and things like that as well at the games. So maybe there is just that culture of, hey, just because you're a big guy wearing the tie, and that's not a shot at his size, I'm just simply by his role with the team. Just because you're a big person with the team, a big role, doesn't mean you don't have time to talk to everybody that's behind the scenes and things like that. So, taking the glass half full approach, I think that might be also something to point out. Maybe, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm stretching a little bit. I think it is good that Foley's visible. I think it's important to have that relationship. I think Foley just likes having that relationship as well. But in the same breath, how much is too much? And then we've talked about interference from above, over the summer a few times, and in the spring as that season came to an end. How soon until we start talking about interference from above in our shows again? Hopefully not anytime soon. But if things start going rough come February, we're going to be talking about interference from above a lot.
Another bullet point to point out here, it says that he treats coaches very, very well. No, it doesn't. I'm being facetious there. He does serve the community. They do some great things, and they'll have probably the Cherries Foundation and all that there. So that would be good. Give back to the community. Follows the advice of experts. If he's the captain of his ship, does he listen much to experts? Not quite sure about that point. And I think the point that we both agree on, and we've seen the fruits of the labor, is that he has an incredible desire to win. And that's the one thing that, in doing all of these interviews abroad, the one thing that I made sure that I pointed out is that he does have a tremendous and absolutely, he's infatuated with wanting to win. He has that desire to win.
It's the ego. And that's good. I want an owner that wants to win. I want an owner not afraid to allow their general manager to make some very jaw-dropping moves. And I look at this VGK team and I think back to growing up a White Sox fan with Ken Williams as our general manager. We've talked about this before. Kenny Williams, they're not all the right moves, but he's going to make moves. And if things aren't working well, in comes Albert Bell, in comes Jim Thome, although that one I didn't agree with after they won the World Series. But, in comes these big names, David Wells, big name, no pun intended there, and they're going to make moves and they're going to do what they can. I don't know how easy it is in the European soccer world to make those types of moves. I'm sure you can do something. I don't know exactly if it's like the NHL, but like you said, he's going to find a way to compete and he's going to want to win. He's got an ego. He wants to win, and that's good.
Yeah, for sure. And great conversation there and good topic. And again, it's on NHL.com if you want to check it out. And we do welcome all of the new Cherry fans who follow us on Twitter and listen now to the podcast. I kind of spread the love there to them for everything they do, and they return the favor. So it's really cool, and we appreciate it. And if anything pops up there, cheerio, we'll make sure that we follow it there. Coming up next, our predictions for tonight's game. VGK traveling to Los Angeles out of the chute after the holiday break. We'll talk about our predictions as well as our locks of the night and much, much more. Stay with us. We'll also take a look back at the St. Louis game over the weekend right here on Locked On Golden Knights. Welcome back on Locked On Golden Knights. Tony Cardasco, Chris Golick from Las Vegas. We appreciate you making us your first listen, your team every day. And you can find us wherever you get your podcast. And make sure that you check out our YouTube channel where there's a lot of shenanigans going on. And you can also check out the new cap that Chris is sporting today. Is that a gift? Do you need a black light on top of it? No?
No, I've had this one for a while. I just grabbed a different hat today.
Okay, I want to talk, first of all, one of the highlights of the VGK St. Louis game the other night, little Chris, was that his debut on Nitron?
No, that's definitely not his debut on night. Oh God, no. Oh God, no. He's a mainstay on that thing, it seems like.
So Nitron is it's the Jumbotron, and they call it Nitron, and they show a lot of photos of the fans there just to set the stage.
Yeah, so my son and my Chris wanted to explore the strip. He loves learning about the properties and the casinos, not the gambling side, just loves learning about them and things like that. So
soon enough, son, soon enough.
Yeah, soon enough. So the day starts at Palace Station of all places. We end up at Win Encore walking around to Excalibur, to Luxor, to Mandalay Bay. As we're going down the escalator, Chris is sitting like this. Chris, make the face you did for the picture. There you go. He's pointing backwards. And I take the picture. I'm like, cool. And then he's pointing at the Blues sign. It was House of Blues. They played the Blues. So he was, Chris was on the ball. I was not on the ball on that one. So you do the thing. If you use a certain hashtag, they'll put, if it's a cute picture, they'll usually put you up on the Jumbotron or on the Nitron. And that's that, right? So I look up about 15 minutes before warm-ups is about to start. And there's little Chris up there. And I try to snap a picture right away because they cropped out House of Blues on the picture. They cropped it out. You took my What the Friday, but I'm still going to put it in there on Friday anyway. They cropped out the House of Blues part. And so they just had my son up here making a funny face. So I don't know. It was, I get it, I guess, sponsors, whatever. You don't want a kid, giving thumbs down to House of Blues in the middle of the casino floor. But it was fun. It was goofy. But what the Tuesday Vegas Golden Knights are cropping out House of Blues. That was a money shot and you blew it.
That's great. So VGK comes off of the win. They did beat the Blues that night in a shootout. First win in 10 tries in which they gave up more than 3 goals in a game and actually won. So that's the first time that they won a game there. VGK, it's imperative once again tonight. They are 18-4-0 in scoring first. And so we'll take a look at that as one of our keys tonight in games where they have to come from behind. Again, Cassidy kind of laid that out. Everything starts to compound, and VGK goes from being down 1 to 2, and sometimes 3 goals in a game. Chandler Stevenson, talk about his contributions once again. Another 4-point game, right? Is that where we left off the other night? A 4-point game?
3 points, 4 points, whatever it is, it's noticeable. I mean, he went through a goalless streak for a while, but he was still contributing, and now he's getting all these assists. I mean, he is Mark Stone's center. And I think something I was going to text you about this. I think we should possibly put together some lines, and Fam, you're welcome to jump on this as well. What if there's again, back to a balanced situation where a player like Amadio does stay up on line 1 and you keep line one as Stevenson, Stone, Amadio, and now you slide Eichel down to line two. Eichel, Marchesault, Riley Smith, and then Carlson obviously down to line three. Like there is a possibility. Like if, in my opinion, at least right now, why would you want to overload that line one? If you want to create these line mismatches, utilize Stevenson as a natural center. That is his position. He's better in the center as the wing, and we're seeing it right now. Mark Stone is a man possessed. And you can go to that line if you need the hero line, right? You can put them together. But I would honestly like to see an experiment where Eichel or whatever, who cares what line one, line two is irrelevant. The first line, the second line, whatever you want to say. I would like to see a situation where Eichel is not on that line and see what this team can do. And that might help correct the line three situation. All of a sudden now you have William Karlsson out there with, Paul Cotter, and someone else. I mean, that's something that can produce, and that might fix everything on its own. And you keep line four as is.
Lisa Cotter had a photo on her Twitter feed yesterday with the fam, as you call them. Of course, Paul was in there. He looks fine. So maybe he's coming back pretty soon. But what are they going to do with Amadio then? Because Amadio's on fire. You can't take him off the top line. And again,
if Eichel comes back, you have no choice but to take him off the top line. No choice.
If Cotter comes back, you think they'll take Amadio off?
No, I was saying if Eichel were to come back,
comes back. Oh, yeah,
I don't
for
see
sure. That's
an
the only
immediate
piece.
path.
But then he'll be strong on the third line. And again, you could put Stevenson or Carlson. I think Carlson ran Amadio off of his line. Remember in the preseason?
Listen, Carlson, Cotter, Kessel.
They were having a BLT. He said, "I don't like this guy on my line, and why am I playing the third line?"
Real fast, I want to address something that'll take 30 seconds, hopefully. So Matt Gorley, I don't know if I'm saying his name
Matthew
right.
Gorley. Yeah,
we had up and back about the game, and I mentioned after the third goal that Logan Thompson let in quickly in the second period that we might see Aiden Hill. I didn't say LT was having a bad game or anything like that. I simply said we might see Aiden Hill come into this game. And Matt thought I was, on LT's case a little bit. I felt the goal went between LT's legs was a bit weak, even though there was a weird deflection. I still felt that one was weak. But, you don't always pull a goalie just because the goalie isn't playing well. That's not the message that you're sending. Sometimes you create that spark. You create that energy. You piss off the team, for lack of a better term, because the team wasn't playing well in front of him. That's one of the other many reasons why you might pull a goalie. So that's why, Matt, I was possibly suggesting that. Not anything against LT. LT played decent that game. He wasn't great, but he was decent. He gave the team a chance to win. He showed up in the shootout as well. So that's my short point shorter as we wind this thing down.
Maybe it's a VLT, a Vegas Logan Thompson. Will he be in net tonight? VLT?
I think we go LT Aiden Hill.
Okay. And then any predictions and also your lock of the night? We got to wrap it up here, brother.
I think we got a high scoring game 4-3. Let's go with Stevenson and Smith.
Okay.
4-3 VGK.
Okay. I'm going 5-4 LA Kings. I just think the Kings need to win this game. It's going to be something I think that they've circled on their calendar. And then I will go with Chandler Stevenson, and I will go with Will Carrier.
Nice.
We thank everyone for tuning in to our show today. As always, thanks for making us your first listen, and we'll see you again tomorrow right here on Locked On Golden Knights.